Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychak. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychak, and tonight we're doing part two. Part two. We got a huge guest on tap again. I guess by our popular demand, we have Preston Dennett coming back to bring us part two. He was so compelling last week in that part one that we just couldn't leave it there. And I know you guys agreed because you guys have downloaded that show quite a bit. And he's an interesting guy, and UFOs is the topic again. And we're going to go deeper, though, this time. We're going to be talking about government cover-ups. We're going to be talking about the government, their involvement with it. We're going to try to get more into cattle mutilation. We're going to try to get into the Men in Black. I know there's a lot of questions that we didn't even touch last week, so we're going to get to that this week. Right, Doug?
Yeah. And crashes.
And crashes, yes.
Did you, I mean, if you research how many supposed UFO crashes have happened across the U.S. over the years, it's kind of insane. And you're like, well, they can't all be true. But yet you take each case and you study it and you listen to the eyewitnesses and you read the testimony and you're like, something happened.
So there's got to be, because the testimonies of multiple people that saw this thing happen, but yet there's no connection to them. It's not like they had a town hall meeting saying, okay, when someone asks, this is what we saw.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so it's just too much to turn a blind eye to. There's just too much evidence there.
I mean there's
eyewitness.
Joel, there's even crashes that have happened in, urban areas. Like, in cities.
Yeah, right in towns.
Military showing up. Yeah, it's just amazing to me.
It is, but, and then it would seem, and a conspiracy hat on for a minute, that there's a huge cover-up by, it would seem, our government. There's been a lot of, I think, cover-up going on, and I don't know how you feel about that, Doug, but there's been some, why would they have such a strong response to a UFO crash? Yeah. Well, and then tell witnesses you didn't see anything.
Obviously, they can see whatever's going down on radar, Mm-hmm. Did I ever tell you? Okay, one time I had dinner with the ex-head of Cheyenne Mountain Space Command.
Interesting.
There was a friend of mine was opening a museum out west. Okay. And one night this guy goes, hey, would you want to have dinner with so-and-so? And I'm thinking, heck yeah, that'd be awesome. Because I know exactly what question I'm going to ask him right across the dinner table. And what would you ask?
I would ask him about UFOs, man. I mean, you got him right there.
Of the Space Command. They're the ones that are tracking space junk, incoming missiles, whatever. So I figure I'm going to ask him, are UFOs real? Just word it that way. Drum roll.
I'm waiting with bated breath. Anyhow. Drum roll right here.
Oh, my God.
All right.
You're a little weak.
Well, it was a very weak drum roll.
Okay. So I ask him, I look him right in the eyes, and I say, Donald, are there UFOs? And he looked at me, and he answered very quickly. And he goes, there are no UFOs. O's, and he said U really slow, meaning the unidentified.
Oh, gotcha.
He literally gave me a very legal answer, right?
Yeah.
There are no UFOs, but he's, and I looked at him and winked, and he then went on to explain how they can, the detail of what they can see, of, the space junk and things coming in and going out of the atmosphere. He's talking about threads on,
So the U, of course, was elongated because they have identified them.
There's no doubt they have. I mean, they can see every last little tiny thing, or we would have no defenses against attack. They have.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, they're. What are they starting? The Space Marine Project now, or whatever it's called, the Space Force.
Yeah, the Space Force. Oh, yeah. Well, that's just, of course, the Space Force has probably been around for 30 years. It's my guess. Probably 40.
I would say Reagan started it with Star Wars.
I would imagine it's been around a long time. So they're just now kind of putting a name to what's been a black budget type project, no doubt. Actually, I think probably everything is behind 50 years minimum from what we see, from a plane.
Yeah.
It was developed 50 years ago. If you actually go back and look at some of these, like the SR-71, and you go, oh my God, they were drafting that in 1949. And you're like, oh, that's crazy.
And think of how many UFO reports that came out now, like when they were doing the prototypes for the B-2 bomber, the stealth bomber. How many people called in? Oh, I saw a UFO. Well, they kind of relied upon that, too.
But there were reports of seeing that craft almost 50 years before it was unveiled. So
a dark winged type craft fitting that exact description, way back in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah. I don't think it's, let's put it this way. I think very few people in the government probably know what's going on. I don't think it's a ton of people. I think it's very few.
Well, it's clear how few it is, because I don't mean to cut you off at all, sir, but it's clear because they had to write into a bill to have it brought out to the public.
Yeah, some of it.
So they don't even know.
On that level, whatever that level is, they're going to release some. Yeah, somebody wrote that in that stimulus bill. It's hilarious. Buried it in a 5,000-page bill and gave it to everybody, 2 hours before they had to sign off on it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Tricky.
That is good gamesmanship right there.
Yeah, I was thinking about you. I was thinking, did you do that?
That is definitely something I'd do. I'd put it right not back page, but I'd put it like on page 6 or like 430. That way it's just deep enough. They'll never get to it. And if they thumb through it backwards, they're never going to get to it that way. They're just going to sign it and there it is.
But I'm just, and I'm also thinking about, mass sightings. There really haven't been any since, what was that, 97, the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah. But even Kurt
maybe,
Russell is actually one of the ones that called it in.
He was a witness. Yeah, he was a witness in his private aircraft. I saw that live on, I think it was Jay Leno. Kurt Russell was being interviewed. They were talking about it, and all of a sudden he goes, I was there. I was in my plane.
I was one of the people to call it in.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
That is nuts, isn't it? One thing that's also crazy is I've been watching you on Facebook and watching your posts, And one thing you've been posting about, which I find just highly fascinating, is your work with the giant squid.
Oh, yeah.
And you've never really talked about it on the show. I mean, how did you end up getting a giant squid to pose for the camera? I mean, how did that all work, Doug? Did you have a diver go down there? Was the camera on a rope? I mean, what, if you could talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I mean, it's totally all out there, and others have already tried it, which is funny, and they failed. So basically, my idea, hold on, my headphone fell right off.
It's okay.
Okay, so my idea was based on something that happened in the Arctic, catching this big fish, thinking that whatever it is probably stays in their niche of just being on the bottom, being a cannibal, never migrating up and down the water column. Like, a normal squid that's going to grow up, and they don't have a very long life. Their life is very short. But I figured this squid wouldn't breed, and it would go way beyond the lifespan. Whether it's an Architeuthis or whether it's a Humboldt or some colossal squid, they would get out of their niche, and they would just stay at the bottom and never breed and just become a cannibal. That was my simple concept based on the things that I learned up in the Arctic with these giant lake trout.
Sure.
So the idea was to catch a squid big enough to hold the camera, attach a camera onto that squid with literally a pin and a cotter key, I guess, and a washer. So put basically an underwater camera on AquaView. Well, I used a well camera for well inspection.
What? Oh, okay.
See,
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, what would be off the, an off-the-shelf thing I can use that's not going to break my budget to do the show? Because I had to hire boats. I had to hire a bunch of divers. They're not doing all that stuff for free. Hotels for everybody, food, blah, 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 blah. And TV show budgets can be a little tight because you still have music and animation and
your narration and everything,
editing and sweetening and insurance and on and on. It's a bunch of piranhas eating a whale. So the idea was to build a pseudomorph of a squid, basically a giant basilar. So we built a giant basilar to catch a squid.
Okay. So now you caught a squid, and then you put the camera on a live, smaller squid.
Okay, so you bring them up on basically they're basically backward barbs, but they don't penetrate the squids. You're not harming, they just get entangled on these kind of upward barbs. And the lure's got a light on it and glows. And the idea was just to catch a squid, it had to be at least, 4.5 to 6.5, 7, 8 feet, big to put a camera on it.
Yeah.
Then the idea was to then send him down, because if a squid's going to be traumatized even a little bit, he's probably going to go sulk. He's going to try to get away from all of his brothers and sisters that are going to eat him if they sense that he's been injured or compromised. So the squids that are catchable are up near the surface. So as soon as we caught him, put a camera on him, although he wasn't really injured, he was compromised. He was tired or whatever. So we got this camera, and he's swimming down to get away because he will be cannibalized so quick.
Heartbeat,
Squid are cannibals. And if anybody, if you know anything about squid, they have these chitin hooks that are on each of their tentacles. So they only have suckers; they have hooks.
Okay.
So they go after each other. I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah. It's I've heard that about squid. That if there's a school of squid, they're going to eat the injured and the ones that are acting differently, like quick, like no waiting.
So this thing, Joel, once we got the squid up unharmed, had the spike designed. I had everything already machined, on my CNC machine to basically put it through his fin, one of his dorsal fins, put a washer so it didn't pull off, put a cotter key, just like you would in your car, to hold the camera on, right?
Yeah.
And the camera's probably about, I'm saying about 4 inches, and it's got LED lights built in. Very waterproof because I had the camera potted. So there's no air in the camera because it's got to go down 1,000 feet and not leak. So there's no air to leak because it's all potted. That makes sense. So, and you pot with epoxy, basically fill it up. So anyhow, this thing's going down, and we're watching, the depth meter on it, and it's going down, and other squid are attacking it, but they're not hurting the squid. It's so cool. They're feeling the camera that's on the squid. They're actually investigating that camera.
Were you amazed
Oh my God!
By what they were doing. I mean, even beyond the big squid or the giant squid you filmed, but were you amazed that the way that they interact? Like, they're checking that out. There's some real brains behind them.
It's probably never been seen before. And they're literally gingerly feeling the camera while this squid is diving. So they're darting up, feeling it, going away. Another one comes up, darts, feels it, swims away. So they just, new ones kept coming to feel it. Isn't that, I mean, it's just like.
That is so strange.
Somebody wearing really saddle shoes in the schoolyard. You know, everybody.
Yeah, it's something new. It's something different.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now. Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
They're seeing.
Yep. So it gets down deeper and deeper and deeper, and squid continue to follow it and check that camera out, which we're thinking is good. And then all of a sudden, there it is. I mean, this monster down in the deep, you know, at about 1,000 feet, waiting with outstretched arms, waiting to eat our squid. And I'll guarantee it noticed the bright light. Normally squid, I mean, they light up.
Yeah.
Because they have bioluminescence. But I think it noticed our bright light. It flared its body, just gave us a great view of its tentacles. And those were measured. His eye was measured at about 1.5 feet.
That's a huge eyeball.
It was the biggest eye ever photographed ever in history. Bigger than a blue whale's eye. So we did photograph.
Bigger than a dinner plate. I mean, that's bigger than a platter. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge.
So we filmed the biggest. I mean, that's kind of cool to think about it. We filmed the biggest eye of a living creature ever in history. But we didn't know what species it was. So we get a glimpse. It just flares up, comes towards our camera squid, and then just instantly disappears. Because I would imagine they can hit speeds of 40 miles an hour underwater. Which is why nobody's ever filmed one. Because they're sending ROVs down. They're making noise and bubbles and chords and, you know, and we're sending down the first squid with a camera on it. Trojan squid.
You're actually sending one of its own down.
Yeah, well, it's like when you're fishing for a big walleye. Some people would think of it as using a small walleye for bait because they all fish cannibals. I mean, they all eat their own, their own fry.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that was it, and we didn't know that we had filmed it because there was a hurricane coming.
Oh, you had no idea of what you caught on camera. It wasn't like you're watching a viewfinder in real time to see what was down there.
Yeah, we were, but we had to roll it up and get out of there. There was a hurricane approaching.
So you had no idea that you had actually caught this amazing evidence.
So when the safety crew yells, "That's it," these guys are all ex-military. Mm-hmm. And when they yell, "That's it," that's it. You're not going to argue for even 1 second.
Yeah.
Because, it just doesn't work that way. And so we, everything got rolled up back to the hotel to look at the footage. There it was.
What was your first, first I got to ask, what do you estimate the weight of something like that?
Okay. Well, the biggest problem was in the beginning, and actually for 13 years, there was an argument. Was it an Architeuthis or was it a giant Humboldt squid that had gotten up his niche, right? Yeah. So kind of the wars began. The wars with the experts, the wars with the Smithsonian. They were interested, but they had been trying to get giant squid footage forever too. And so it just kind of turned into, something got ugly. It's almost like, in the Patterson footage.
Yeah.
How ugly it got for those guys.
Yeah.
It got that ugly for me.
Oh boy.
And this
so
we're not talking about a Bigfoot. We're just talking about a squid.
A squid. And what did they
well,
settle on what species.
Well, even the own crew started getting angry, and I don't know. The whole thing just kind of wasn't real cool. But then, history recently this year, well, I should say in 2020, at the end of 2020, decided to really find the experts to determine what species. It was determined it was an Architeuthis dux, which would have made it the first ever in history ever filmed in the wild, in its own environment, free swim, not caught on a, we're talking a big animal here. And when you talk about the weight, it's so weird because like Architeuthis have they have these two hunting tentacles. So they have extra ones and they're long. So if you take those into account, you could be talking 104 feet. And like a blue whale's can grow up to around 100 feet. So
wow.
It may have been the biggest animal ever filmed, period, on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That is very cool.
But we don't know that. Do you know what I mean? So then I did another expedition, Joel. And I thought, okay, how can I avoid all this controversy? Then I went to design a underwater measuring lens system. Figuring, well, we'll just go back to the same area, same time of year, same team. We'll do it again, right?
Yeah.
And didn't happen.
That's just holy. That's your holy grail footage.
Yeah, it could be. And
that's,
So what I developed was this very simple. We're two potted high-end lasers that were spaced a known amount apart, literally machined into a bracket that I had machined and designed. So that way, right down to the 10,000ths of an inch accuracy. So when those lasers then would hit, no matter how far away they are, you would know exactly how big the creature would be. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Your laser measuring the creature.
Right, the distance between the two laser beams.
Yeah.
And then if you get a glimpse of the whole creature and you got those two dots, now you can just simply multiply how many times those dots will fit on the creature. So that was my goal. Failed. So I'm thinking, maybe we just got lucky. Like really lucky.
Like super duper, like winning the lottery lucky.
What if, oh my goodness, I did the bad thing, didn't I?
Wait a minute, I'm the guy that always gets the flack for that. Feels good to me not be the guy.
It's funny too because the person calling knows better than to call me right. He did it anyhow. It's all right. There's always a little humor in live shows. I got to tell you a funny story after we get done with the squid about a live show. Okay. Yeah. So, what if this is never done again? Like, what if 50 years goes by and it doesn't happen again?
You would think that they would look back at your notes, though, and go, that's the key right there is to use an actual squid to carry the camera. I mean, it's kind of funny. Nobody ever thought of that before.
No. Why?
Thinking, well, why not just send one of its own down because it won't be spooked by one of its own.
Well, here's the way people think, scientists. They think it's got to be $1 million or it won't work. Really, if you really think about my equipment, besides all the stuff I had to make, which was a lot of labor and the big lure, which with the lure, the big lure had a camera in it too. Probably just the equipment. I don't know, a couple grand.
Really?
But probably I'm sure, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million was spent trying to get footage of a giant squid.
Yeah. Oh, easily. Because I remember seeing documentaries of people going under there, and they're in those. What were they? A lot of them they like to use those submersible little submarines, and they'll go down.
Yep.
stuff like that, which is grossly expensive, I'm assuming. And here you come along, a simple guy from the Midwest going, well, wait a minute. Let's do this a little bit differently. And it works. Did it kind of draw the ire of some, and don't take this the wrong way. So exactly. A bigger filmmakers. I mean, I don't mean bigger like, more successful, but ones that at least have in their mind that they're more successful. Did it draw their ire because they had missed out? They didn't do what you had done.
It did on some scientists. In fact, some of my heroes, people I used to I looked up to since I was a kid, basically turned on me. You know what I mean?
Really?
Well, they're just kind of like, just kind of that scoffing,
Yeah, but yeah, we all know
Smithsonian
those guys.
wanted to do a big display and build a replica of our squid, and that got kiboshed by some, jealous sculptor, maybe. I don't know.
That is quite the story. That is quite the expedition.
So the thing is, I would love to try it again. I've got new ideas, but that doesn't mean it'll work. Think about the multi-steps that you have to take to do that. And I tell people, in even like Bigfoot research, it's going to be something that's going to, in the end, everybody's going to go, oh my God, that was so obvious.
Right.
Too.
Right. Yeah.
So easy and so obvious. But it'll be some multi-step process where it wasn't just, you just don't go from A to B. You got to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which is, this was.
Mm-hmm,
right down to the washer and the cotter pin.
Do you think there'll be a new person in the field of Bigfoot that cracks it, someone with new eyes, fresh and fresh ideas?
I don't know. It's either going to be that or a Tesla car coming around a corner at 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, speaking of which, how's the Squatcher Stalker 3000 doing, the bike? I call it that. I dubbed it that, by the way.
We're calling it that. It's funny.
It's the Squatch Stalker. I love the name.
Prototype's done. Works beautiful.
Yeah.
Sitting here.
Yeah. I think that would be very valuable. Yeah, it'd be a valuable tool.
Yeah.
I think having a silent mode of transportation, because that's the thing with Bigfoot research. Everyone's a lot of people are using ATVs or their trucks, or they're doing this or doing that. I'm a hunter. I know exactly how this rolls. They hear that from many miles away.
Yep.
Right? That motor. I mean, it's
yep.
And any animal that's been in the woods that's ever been under pressure, they get to know that ATV sound really well, meaning that's a problem.
Yeah, as do the wildlife, as do the bears and the bobcats.
Yep.
And the lynx. And so people could use a deal like this for just regular wildlife research.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, literally, I may have already told this story. I apologize if I have. But a friend of mine had a bobcat literally grab a rabbit right by his feet because he was on an electric bike out at Namaji.
Really?
Yeah, but the bobcat's hunting this. It was silent, didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no disruption for it to take note of.
Yeah, he got photos of this bobcat a foot away from him.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think that once your prototype and you bring it to market, I think it's going to be a huge hit. Well, I really do.
Well, I'm going to bring it to market, but I want to show people, and certainly I'll share how they can build one of their own.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
that's something I've been interested in lately, is building my own e-bike. I've been looking into the parts and
sure.
Stuff like that.
I can do it, Joel. You can do it.
Well, I've been a mechanic all my life for ATVs and doing this and doing that. It doesn't not look, and I say doesn't look, and I'm oftentimes the simplest things are the most complicated. It doesn't look overly complicated. I'm sure there's something I'm overlooking.
If a person doesn't care what it looks like, where the wires go, if they just bundle them up with, the 50 wires with Velcro,
yeah,
a couple of zip ties, fine. Could do it way quicker than I did because I had to figure out all of these complex hidden wire runs.
Mm-hmm.
I had to hide everything.
Do you ever just drill a hole in the tube of the bike, run it through, and then drill another hole and then snake it through?
You can do that if you weigh 110 pounds. You don't mind your bike frame just breaking.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, it messes the integrity of the bike at that point, or maybe welds some conduit.
Right.
Conduit.
But there's ways, and I'm really always happy to share with people, and, they can certainly save money. What is my time worth? I bet you I put 60 hours into it.
Oh, easy, because we've been on the phone discussing the show.
Yeah.
And you've been talking about this for quite a while, and I would say, yeah, you got all that. A lot of midnight oil has been burned.
Oh, God, yeah.
In the High-Chuck laboratories.
I don't even want to know. But
getting this done.
It. You flip a switch, the whole bike powers up, the cameras are already rolling. If you wanted to record audio, hit another switch.
And that's so cool.
Get on it.
Unfortunately, Doug, we've already burned up a half hour. We got to get Preston in here. So we're going to run a break. We're going to have Preston Dennett joining us here momentarily. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be continuing our discussion about UFOs, who's seeing them, how we're seeing them, and who's covering them up. Be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips and, whoa, hidden.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP stimulus loan, and you may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. The program ends soon and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
Not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Highcheck. You know, I misspoke. He's not going to be joining us. And when I say he, I mean, of course, Preston, until a little bit later in this hour. I want to say in about 10 minutes he'll be calling in. I'm the guy that got him mixed up, so we're going to be having him on here shortly. But in the meantime, giant squid, getting back to really quickly. Are people on the menu for something like that?
Yeah, with Humboldt squid, for sure. They will attack you and eat you. No doubt.
So, that squid could conceivably be the new Jaws. They could make horror movies dedicated to this. Maybe that squid, it hit me when I was kind of going on break, we're talking. Is a squid that size, do they come to the surface? And if they do, could that have been the Kraken? You know, when they would talk about the Kraken sailors.
Okay, so here's my theory. So when they come to the surface, I believe they're dying, right? They have such ammonia in their skin and their flesh that you can't eat them when they're too big because they taste like Windex.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and so they have a really weird blood too. They have like copper in their blood versus iron. We have iron. It's iron based. Their blood is blue, or kind of a blue-green. It's copper-based. Just very alien.
That is really, really odd.
Yeah, it is alien. I mean, it's
that is. Now, why do they think that the copper? What does that serve? Must be something to do with the environment they're living in.
That's what carries
the blood.
Their oxygen for them is copper.
Wow.
Allows them to filter, the oxygen from the water through their gill or their siphons.
Yeah. But the deep has always been kind of a domain of aliens almost.
Yeah, but
you have the squid, you have the octopus. I mean, just strange
creatures. They have multiple hearts. They literally have like a brain in every tentacle. They have the biggest nerve axioms of any animal. That's where we studied and learned everything we know about nerves. And the nervous system was from squids and octopuses and so on, because they have these huge nerves in their tentacles and in their bodies. They're just huge.
Are they more complex than humans?
Oh my God. They have basically, Joel, if you had a TV set for your skin, they have these chromatophores that can not only emit light, but can change shape, can change color. I mean,
wow.
It's so bizarre. Not only, it'd be like you not only having a TV on your skin, but also being able to have a 3D printer on your skin and be able to change the shape of your skin, because they can mimic things.
Yeah.
I mean, they can lay on a coral bed and mimic the coral.
Jeez, talk about the perfect camouflage.
Oh my God, they're beyond alien. You know, they don't belong here. And then they have a beak for a mouth, which is, it's like a parrot beak. And so they basically can take softball, a normal squid, just a 4-foot squid, can take a softball size bite out of you. Basically,
that is scary to think about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then they have the hooks and the suckers and the tentacles that can shoot out, and then they squirt ink on top of that. And then they have jet propulsion, so they can swim.
I wonder how their relationship is like with sharks. Do sharks go after them as prey? Squid.
I don't think they do much, because they haven't found a lot of sharks with sucker marks on them. Which is going to happen if you have a battle.
Yeah.
Whales, they'll find these giant sucker, which is really the first reason that they knew they existed. They'd get these 1 foot wide sucker marks
1 foot wide. Oh my God.
They'd hunt the whale, and then they'd come up, and there'd be these big, giant sucker marks. And so nobody knows, was the squid hunting the whale, or was the whale hunting the squid? To this day, we don't really know.
Wow, so we're not even sure if these things have an actual natural predator then.
No.
They might be the apex predator of the ocean.
Yes, something that big at 100 feet, or 2.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I firmly believe there's 200-foot-long squid down there. Maybe even bigger.
Wouldn't you have a moment of, oh my God, if that turned out to be the baby?
Well, because if they can get out of their niche and live beyond their normal lifespan by not reproducing, and giving all that life energy, like salmon, they swim upstream, they spawn, and they completely disintegrate. They fall apart. It's the same way.
Are they living past the midnight zone in the ocean?
Oh, God, yes.
So they're going way deep.
Oh, they go way deep, way beyond light. Which is why they use bioluminescence for communication.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see what's in the Mariana Trench, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see what kind of life would be down that deep if you could actually get a sustained camera in there to do surveillance.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I've got one designed and ready to go. I just, would need funding quite a bit. And I don't even know if it would work because of the buoy system that would have to be deployed, and how long would that buoy last, and would they even allow the permit to have it out in the middle of the ocean?
So, okay, the listener right now is saying this is all great, but what does it cost to put one of these expeditions on, beginning to end?
For me, $50,000 I can do one.
Is that that's kind of considered on the cheap, isn't it?
Oh, sure, by scientific standards, big time.
Yeah, so if you're out there and you got a couple of million extra dollars laying around that you're looking to invest and you happen to be listening.
Everybody wants to finance another squid expedition.
Finance another squid expedition and make sure I can come with. I
could have a team put together by tomorrow morning.
You can hang out with me, you see. And that's the selling part point right there. No. In all seriousness, I think you should get out there and do it again.
I would love to also have a permanent camera system down in the Sea of Cortez.
You do?
Well, oh God, there's got to be things that we haven't
there
discovered there too.
There's got to be. I mean, we know more about space than we do our oceans.
Yeah. Oh, by far.
We have no idea what's lurking in the deep.
Okay, we've discovered about 1.8 million different creatures on Earth. It's estimated there's 10 million yet to go.
Wow.
And of course, a lot of those will be small. A lot of them will be boring,
microscopic, and there's going to be all
creatures. Some of them are also going to be big.
Yeah. Do you think that that's more plausible to find big ones in the ocean than on the land, though? I mean, other than Sasquatch, barring him right now, not in this conversation.
Right.
Do you believe that we're going to find our next big, large creature like you found in the ocean?
No, we'll probably find it in the ground, buried as some type of fossil. But I think the ocean probably offers the best chance. It's it's huge and it's an abyss, but those animals are very active, and there's no people down there there's no people at 1,000 feet to screw up the traffic of these animals.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
So if you do a bait cam down deep, eventually some new stranger that's never seen it before, that's 200 feet long, is going to come by and go, what's this deal? I'm going to go check it out. And they're not going to be trying to avoid being filmed. Just...
Wouldn't it be awesome, though, to do what you did on a squid or another animal and just let them swim around? Like watch their daily life.
Yeah.
Of what's going on.
Yeah.
what they're seeing all the time, without it being so evasive or sticking out like a sore thumb, for lack of a better term.
Well, as micro cameras become more higher resolution, smaller, and consume less electricity, those things are going to happen on a more regular basis. They are putting cameras on hawks and eagles now. Just think about that. That's an amazing feat.
Think about the pictures they're getting.
Have you seen?
The video is just breathtaking.
Have you seen it, Joel?
I have seen video where they've on birds where they've taken small cameras and attached them to them.
It's amazing.
And the video that they're taking is just breathtaking.
Yep.
Because you're actually seeing the bird's eye view. I mean, you're seeing what they're seeing.
For instance, I really want to get a permit this year. I put cameras on a lot of different animals. Generally, they're pretty big and they're kind of bulky. I've even put them on rats in New York to see where they go. You know what I mean? It's really cool. It is interesting. We put them on feral dogs, put them on hogs. But I want to put one on a coyote. I want to get a permit to work with some coyote researcher to put one on a real miniature one that can be recovered.
Yes.
What would do is just use a cardboard link in the corner so it dissolves. It gets wet.
It
just falls off. But you have GPS on it.
And then you can go collect your camera and see what they saw.
And collect the SD card and see what they experienced.
What kind of life do rats live, Doug? I mean, you saw it now. You put a camera on a rat.
I don't even remember that episode. I remember it being cool. I remember being excited when it was going on. But
the cockroach cam is next.
Basically, well, yeah, I'm sure somebody's done that one already. But rats, yeah, they live a kind of an interesting life in all the tunnels and cracks and pipes that they travel in. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they have a whole social system all to their own.
Yeah, they do. I'm thinking, but I am thinking the coyote cam would be extremely revealing. Something's just telling me to do it, but it's got to be one where the other coyotes do not notice it, or so the caller is.
Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP loan. You may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. The program ends soon and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
Disguised with coyote fur.
It might even be the thing that gets the elusive Sasquatch on film.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
What do you think? What do you think I was thinking, Joel?
I know exactly where we're going with that. That's why I went there, because we both come to agreement that these animals, and Sasquatch included, they have symbiotic relationships with each other.
No doubt. Yes, no doubt.
They're using each other to some extent, or to a lot of extent. And that's revealed a lot just about nature, because look at crows and wolves. They're definitely interlinked.
Oh, God, yes.
They got aerial reconnaissance. I used them to a certain extent.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's their little drones. It's like, go find me a deer. We'll catch it and kill it. And you guys can feed on the parts that you want.
Right? Yeah, I do you think that Sasquatches, do you think that they would sense a camera on an animal? Because the strangest thing is, for some reason, somehow, Sasquatch, no matter how clever people hid the camera, no matter how hard they worked on hiding it, has always known where that camera is.
I don't know. The idea is to, take a 3.6 millimeter spy camera, powered by a flat lithium battery that can be under the collar. Take collar, make it very lightweight, very thin. Cover that with fur. Use one of these micro GPS units. I just put a very small GPS unit on my bike. It's got a GPS antenna, or even a telemetry chip. Where you have to use a Yagi antenna to find it.
Yeah.
Even that would work. Put it on there, let them go. So let's say it records for a day or 2 days, 3 days, whatever. Eventually it's going to drop off within a week. It's going to get wet. And you can either use like a bismuth wire or like I was just thinking cardboard would probably work just as well as anything else. Cardstock. Gets wet, falls off, you recover it, you got the camera. You can just keep repeating this.
Yeah, because you have to have a way for it to disengage itself from the animal, and cardboard would be the ticket because it'd get wet and lose its integrity.
Yep.
And just fall apart.
Yep.
That's interesting.
And it's not hard to catch coyotes.
No, they're everywhere. They're pretty easy.
I've called them within a foot of me. Or I'm like under a sheet, in the wintertime where you're completely camouflaged. Your eyes are peeking out. Start out with a dying rabbit call. You work yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say it.
A squeaker, a mouse squeaker. They come right up to you and look you right in the eyes.
I was gonna say, if you ever want to find out if you have coyotes on your property or near you, sound off with a rabbit in distress call.
Yep.
You will be amazed at what animals come looking for that. And coyotes and sometimes wolves will come in. A lot of times wolves come in as well, but normally not together. You don't see a lot of coyotes and wolves together, Doug.
No, they don't like each other.
No, they definitely don't like each other.
Yeah.
And so that I always thought was an interesting experiment. I've done that a few times with that rabbit in distress. I had fox come in. I've had, you name it, come in. Pretty much every predator would be eating a rabbit was coming in. And that was the first time I ever saw my first lone gray wolf was using one of those calls.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I had a camera set up and it was recording what was coming in, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we definitely would need a permit because there had to be some researcher that had a permit to, tranquilize one, or net one, or live trap it. And all we got to do is put that collar on. It can go real quick, bing, 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 and it's on its way, unharmed.
So that's what I find funny about the way it's set up. You can shoot a coyote all day.
Yep.
I mean, they're not protected.
Nope.
They're under the Vermin Act, where they're a nuisance animal. But you can't use them to put a camera on.
No.
You can kill them, but you can't use them to put a camera on.
Because you might harm them.
Yeah. Exactly, which makes completely no sense to me. They're okay with the killing, but no, you better not put a camera on them.
Nobody's ever put a camera on a black bear, for instance.
Is that because of the legal hurdles involved?
Sure, I guarantee you would run into red tape that you would never get over.
Yeah.
They may not be able to do a coyote. There may not, because I'm sure whoever I work with is going to want to go through all the red tape and, get all the permits. And so
if it's on private land, do you still need the permit?
Yeah, I still think you're going to need a permit.
Okay. Just kind of curious on that one. If someone's got a giant ranch,
I don't think
with
it wants to
million acres.
I don't think anybody wants to serve 4 years.
No.
Or put
a
camera on a coyote.
Yeah, right.
See,
but that's where the bike comes in.
What are you in for? Oh, I put it
right. Could you imagine that conversation? doing 20 to doing 4 years in the state pen.
Yeah.
Stillwater.
Yeah.
And they're asking what you're in for, and you're with arsonists and murderers.
Yep.
And I put a camera on a coyote.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
I'm not sure if that would give you any street cred in the old joint.
Nope, it wouldn't.
No. But also your bikes now that you're working on.
Yeah.
That's where I think that might be a game changer. Because that's gonna be silent. It's you could be going down the trail in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And something could walk in front of you, and you could have on camera.
Yeah.
I really think that could be the next big thing in Sasquatch research, because that's always been the biggest problem, was putting a lot of miles on without being detected.
Yeah. Well, think about it, because cars bust them all the time. Daytime, nighttime, they see them all the time. I mean, that's probably the most common sighting. It was a road crossing.
Yeah.
Uneventful, took 2 steps, crossed the road, and went into the woods. But if you have a good high-quality HD camera and you can record that, and you have GPS coordinates to go with the footage. I think have a little more cred. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's not going to prove anything, but...
No, but it will give the researcher another tool in the toolbox that's viable.
Yep.
You know, because forever we've been using thermal cams, forever we've been using calls, forever we've been doing this, forever we've been doing that with the same results thus far. Very little.
Right. And if somebody wants to do this, I mean, there are so many dash cams available. Mm-hmm. And so what I used was motorcycle dash cams.
That makes sense.
Yeah, of course. They're
light.
They're light.
Easy to mount.
Cool. They've already got the brackets. They're 4 bikes. They're waterproof.
They're easy to wire up.
Yep, easy to wire up. Well, I take that back. But anyhow.
Well, they're easier than some other cameras out there.
No, it's highly doable. And then you get yourself a good fat tire bike. You don't need to spend an arm and a leg on it. Get yourself either a mid-drive motor kit or a hub motor kit.
What's more durable?
I don't really know because I don't really know. I mean, both could have issues. Both of them have a sacrificial plastic nylon gear. So that's the most likely thing that's going to happen.
Kind of like snowmobiles have, where they got the gear, the nylon gear, where the track is. Yeah.
Yep. Like, for instance, if you have a mid-drive bike and you start out in the wrong gear, you start out in the high gear, you could strip your nylon gear. Now you got to pull the motor off, pull the casing off, put a new gear in there. It's not a big deal. You're out $30.
Yeah.
You're hour or two a time. But a hub motor's got 3 nylon gears that are basically around it's a sun gear clutch. They can fail. I mean, I've had both fail at some point.
You just don't want that to happen on the trail when you're 20 miles from your car.
Well, that's the other beauty. If it does happen, you can usually get home because you can just pedal home.
Well, that is true. That is true.
Pedal home. So it's one of the only vehicles that you actually have a backup power system. But I think that mid-drive for doing off-road is probably better. They're a lot more money. I mean, just the motor is about $900.
Okay. It's the motor that's so expensive, because I was looking at Amazon, just kind of kicking around, looking at what they want. They're $3,000 to $5,000.
It depends on what it depends on what you get. You can get an e-bike. I don't think it would hold up very long for as low as $400 now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's pretty shoddy.
Yeah, it's not going to last too long, probably.
It might be good for an afternoon.
But, those are mainly for sidewalks and streets.
Yeah.
And even going up hills. They're fine. If you have flat terrain, but if you're going to be off-road, fat tires.
Yeah.
Going at least on single track or logging trails and those kinds of things, you're going to need a mid-drive. So you're looking at $900 for a battery. You're looking at probably $450, or for the $900 for the motor, $450 for the battery. You could probably find a bike on Craigslist or get one new for $500 to $900. So
gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Then you have a headlight. Then you're going to spend $200 on the motorcycle dash cam system. You're going to need rack. They're $100. You're going to need some bags. They're $30.
It all gets you. It all gets you. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a break. We're going to hook up with Preston quick. And when we come back, we're going to have Preston on the line with us. He's just messaged me, said he's ready to go. So we're going to run a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Right after this, we're going to have Preston with us. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So Daddy's little girl thinks she's going to prom tonight with some punk who calls himself Snake.
Yeah, they grow up so fast.
Well, not if I can help it, they don't.
Okay, here's what you do. When that kid shows up, Dad's going to be doing a few chores around the house.
Huh?
It doesn't matter the chore. What's important is that it requires the use of a 60cc gas-powered chainsaw and possibly a mask.
I think it's showtime.
He's here. Dad, I want you to meet...
All right, let her rip.
What's that, honey? Hi, Snake. Great to meet you. But wait, where are you going?
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Highcheck. And last week, we had Preston Dennett on last week. And it was such a great conversation. And a lot of you tuned in, a lot of you listened, a lot of you wanted more, because we wanted more too, almost like right away. If we could have got another 2 hours, we so would have, if we would have had time. So Preston has graciously granted us another interview to come on. And Preston, you know, when we were talking with him, we covered a lot and we covered so much ground about abductions, alien abductions, hybrids, what's going on, who's going on. But we never got to the government, Men in Black, all those kind of questions that you guys all have too. So without any further ado, Preston Dennett, everybody. Welcome back, Preston.
Hey, thanks very much.
So how's since last week? I would imagine no alien abductions have happened to you or me or Doug, so that's good. I'm assuming I haven't been abducted. I hope not. Anyway, so you know. And when we left off, we were kind of doing the who, what's, where's, and how's of UFOs, but one thing we were coming up on is how, I guess we'll just hit the ground running here, Preston, is how is the government
streaming only on Peacock?
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP stimulus loan and proudly serves more than 600,000 small businesses across America. Millions of self-employed workers may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. So apply today. The program ends soon, and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply and see if you qualify for a PPP loan. Womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
Involved with extraterrestrials, and to the best of your knowledge or what your research has brought out, what do they know?
They know a lot. Yeah, they are involved. Have been since the beginning. There is a cover-up. This is not speculation. This is demonstrable through documents released through FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. And it's virtually every intelligence agency within our government who has shown a very strong interest in UFOs for a very long time. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all of them, Air Force. And since at least, I mean, we know Roswell's kind of pointed towards the beginning, but we've got indications it goes back earlier than that. The Battle of L.A., 1942. There was this Cape Girardeau case in, Missouri, and that was an early case as well. So
really quickly, it's funny you mentioned the Battle of L.A. because years ago I interviewed what I call the survivor of the Battle of L.A. This individual is so close where they lived, they actually had shells and everything else rolling into their yard. You know what I mean? They rolled down a hill and stuff like that. They explained this whole battle to me and what they saw. This eyewitness said there was UFOs coming in. We were watching them coming in. We were standing in our yard watching these UFOs coming in. It was no weather balloon. It was an absolute UFO. Many of them, not just one, several UFOs coming in. So I'm glad you brought that up because, man, what a tale that is on its own. And we'll have to do a whole show dedicated to that sometime. Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, so we've been dealing with, the government and us have been dealing with UFOs for way far back. It wasn't anything new when the battle for Los Angeles happened.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that was a big event. That's one of California's biggest UFO encounters on record, I think. And we shot some 3,500 rounds of ammunition at it, I think it was, and could not bring this thing down. I also talked to an eyewitness who said, no, it's not a dirigible, which is what skeptics will often try to tell you. And there were multiple objects. One, however, was very large and stayed over Culver City, hovering there for 2 hours. There's a photograph, very famous, which was on the cover of the LA Times. You can see the shells actually exploding, sort of like, looks like a force field almost, against this thing, but apparently not affecting it. And it eventually moved out to sea. It's a crazy case. 5 people died as a result of heart attacks and falling debris and car accidents and things like this.
My Lord.
Wasn't there a photo taken?
Yeah, and it clearly shows this object. It's all the searchlights are trained right on it.
Yep.
And the government tried to call it a balloon, actually, but when that photo came out, there was no calling this a balloon. This was too widely viewed.
Are they covering it up because of power? I mean, is there a risk that they may lose power if they come out and say, hey, we're not alone, and they have way advanced technology above us?
Yeah, I think there's multiple reasons. This was a policy that was adopted very early on, so it became difficult to extricate yourself, and you sort of painted yourself into a corner there. And yeah, it's power, greed, money. We do apparently have crashed UFOs. If you believe the whistleblower accounts, and there are several hundred, these are people within government and the military-industrial complex who say that we have crashed saucers or captured actual alien craft and bodies. It's not just Roswell. It's not just the Aztec crash or the Paradise Valley crash in Arizona or Kecksburg in Pennsylvania. There are a lot of these, scores upon scores. I'm going to say hundreds.
What? Yeah. Okay. So this is the thing. You read about all these crashes. Some of them are even in, I was telling Joel, in urban areas. I mean, I've heard about them in cities.
Yep.
Can you talk more about all these crashes? Because the first thing people think, it cannot be true. If there is such a thing as an advanced society visiting us, they're certainly not going to crash. Something is causing them to crash. So, I want to hear more about this.
Yeah, it's bizarre. You wouldn't expect a UFO to crash, but apparently nothing's perfect. And the fact is, we do have these accounts. I first, thought it was rare, but after writing books about a number of states like California, Nevada, New York, Arizona, New Mexico, they all had UFO crashes, UFO crash accounts. So this isn't nearly as uncommon as we thought. Even within the UFO community, UFO researchers did not want to look into them for decades. And it was really only when the Roswell story broke in the 70s that these reports were taken at all seriously. And there's some possibility they're not just crashing, but in some cases at least were attempting to bring them down, shoot them down.
Is it possible they're using, I mean, I'd heard that maybe certain radar systems are bringing them down. Is that possible? I mean,
yeah,
you heard.
Yeah, this was what supposedly brought the Roswell craft down. It's reports of a lightning strike, or possibly that our radar systems have sort of affected their navigation systems. And this turns up in a couple of other, independent accounts. And reportedly, this is why UFOs will sometimes dart around in sort of square-like diamond patterns or triangles and moving at right angles to sort of avoid that problem.
I had heard, and once again, I'm no authority. I'm just, these are things I remember reading at one point, but that they had flipped on a new radar system, Dennett, right before the Roswell crash.
I can't say that. I know that. I do know that we have firsthand testimony from radar operators who saw this thing. That's what I like about the Roswell crash is we've tracked it from people who actually saw this thing coming down to people who were in the radar room to people who came upon the crash site, to people who guarded it, to people who shipped the wreckage, to people who flew. We've interviewed people, several hundred people, to back this case up. And unlike most crash retrieval reports, Roswell has many, many witnesses who can attest to it, whereas most depend on really one or two or a small handful of witnesses.
Wow.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to ask him, when was the most recent crash? Supposed crash? Do you know?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think there was reports of one I think it was 2 years ago, 2019 in Brazil. And there was quite a few witnesses who apparently saw something coming down. But there was not a whole lot of coverage on it. And these sort of things, UFO crash retrievals are very, I think, quickly debunked. And it's really, there still is a cover-up. There is an active cover-up. And that's the sort of story that becomes very difficult to investigate. I have never really investigated a first-hand crash retrieval myself, but I have talked to some government whistleblowers who have told me about reverse engineering. And having studied all of this, I'm absolutely convinced this is a real phenomenon, and that our government is neck deep in this. There are alien craft secreted not only at Area 51 or Edwards Air Force Base, but in Air Force bases across the United States and the world, for that matter.
Oh, definitely. I mean, some people believe that Eisenhower goes that far back, had some dealings with UFOs. If you believe in that story, I have never found any evidence to really support that, unless you have, where Ike actually met with aliens and allegedly had basically a summit with them, and they explained what they could do for us and what they're allowed to do here. Have you ever heard that tale before?
Yeah, and I absolutely looked into it pretty in depth, and I was surprised to see how much support it had among UFO researchers. And this apparently was a story that came out 1954. Yeah, Eisenhower had meetings with ETs, and immediately after it happened, there were reports of this taking place. And at the time, the president was out of view. The press could not find him. They went crazy. A couple of newspapers said that he had actually died. And Eisenhower said, no, it was a dental emergency. Researchers have now tried to track that down and talked to the dentist, and they're like, no, that story does not pan out. So a lot of insiders now, I'm going to say there's a good dozen of them, are supporting this story. People who were there at the base at that time.
Well, the ones that he allegedly met, if the story holds true, were Nordic-looking, large, blonde-headed aliens.
Yeah, yep, that's right. They were human-looking, and They had come to meet and did a demonstration, showed how they could turn their craft invisible. This was something we had found out earlier on when radar blips would show incoming craft and nothing was visible. So they showed that they had that ability and basically said that we needed to advance our spiritual education, evolution. And we were apparently more interested in their technology. And they did not want to give us that. And they said, we should really disclose. And we did not want to do that because it would upset religion, politics, the stock market, and so on. So it was sort of an impasse as far as I know. But it's really, it's not the only report of this sort of thing happening. There's a number of cases where reportedly highly placed officials had face-to-face meetings with ETs landing at like Holloman Air Force Base is another example. Very similar event happened there.
What about the Gordon Cooper case? Because to me, that one was the one that absolutely without a doubt convinced me the government was covering up UFOs. Because, I mean, that guy was an American hero beyond an American hero. Astronaut Gordon Cooper, when I don't think he actually witnessed it, but he saw the film and was involved in it. Why don't you tell that story, Preston?
Yeah, again, this takes place at Edwards. I looked into the whole Edwards Air Force complex. It's a UFO magnet since day one. Very, very well-attested sightings in 1947, seen by the entire base. Again in 1965, caught on radar. We've got the radar tapes. So it's a very good evidence that something is going on at Edwards. And here comes Gordon Cooper, an absolutely fantastic witness who was on the base at the time when a UFO landed on the runway. A lot of cases like this. UFOs have landed at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada and at other flying over airports. They seem to be attracted to this sort of thing. And this was just a classic saucer. Wasn't there long. But the people who were there had a movie camera and caught footage of it.
They let them film it.
Yes. And this thing didn't stay long and took off. And this footage went straight to Cooper, who did view the footage.
Right.
And pushed it on up to his line of superiors and never saw it again.
Yeah, if anybody doubts, whether the government knows anything about UFOs, go to YouTube, look up that interview with Gordon Cooper, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's the footage I want to see, not the Tic Tac footage, which was nice from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool to see that footage? Yeah.
So the Tic Tac footage was pretty good, but let's see this Edwards Air Force Base footage. Let's see this Eisenhower meeting, which was apparently filmed.
Because they filmed it landing, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they filmed the whole thing.
Yep, landing and taking off.
Jeez, there's just so much they could be showing, and that Tic Tac video, that was interesting, but it was almost felt like a teaser to me more. Like, we're going to throw this bone to you, but there's a whole lot more than we know. Obviously, we know that.
Oh, my goodness.
It was just a teaser.
Thousands of pieces like that. So what do you make from all this ATIP, program, and what's your take on it? I mean, you must have your own take on it.
Yeah, well, I sympathize for our military. I do, because they're dealing with a huge problem. And from a military standpoint, UFOs have got to be viewed as a security threat. If they can shut down our missiles, like at Malmstrom Air Force Base, if they are abducting people in large numbers, which it appears that they are, I can see why the military is concerned and doesn't want to reveal this because they have no control over the situation. But at the same time, everyone knows about it. This has become an open conspiracy. For them to say that, they're not interested and we know nothing is not only demonstrably false and disingenuous, but it's no longer useful for them. And
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, they're being forced into disclosure is kind of what I'm leading into, because if they don't start, taking steps to release information and take this seriously, they will lose all credibility and power over the situation.
Do we even, militarily, stand a chance if we had to go to blows with aliens? I mean, really? I mean, I'm asking that in all honesty, because what's our safeguard to stop them from just deciding that's it? We're going to just vaporize you guys, and that'll be about it.
Yeah, this is what I find so interesting for people who think, oh, ETs are here to take over. Because, yeah, they could. We are pretty much, I don't want to say entirely powerless against them, because I'm sure we could get in a hit here or there, somehow. But no, they're vastly superior in technology. It's certainly the one single thing pretty much all firsthand witnesses, people are taken on board and have actual contact, agree upon. These guys are very technologically advanced. No, we have no power against them if they wanted to take over.
Yeah, they don't seem warlike, though. I mean, I haven't heard any reports of them actually being aggressive. I mean, it's more like we're the aggressors.
Yeah, I think that's true for the most part. There was a policy for us to shoot at UFOs, and there are a few occasions where this did not end well. Pilots have lost their lives chasing UFOs. So thankfully, we stopped doing that. But if they wanted to, I mean, they could. We know this, like the New York power outage in 1965 has a very strong UFO connection, and that was one of many power outages tied directly to UFOs. And some researchers think that could have been a demonstration of their ability to shut down our power grid. So, yeah, their craft can turn invisible, turn at right angles, expand or decrease in size.
It's just amazing. Just what we know is amazing. From the footage and everything else, what we don't know is even got to be tenfold more amazing. But I think you're right. I think the government is now into a situation where it's forced disclosure. Everybody knows.
Aren't we supposed to be getting some kind of data dump, Preston?
That's right.
Coming up? Are you expecting anything, or is it just like a bunch of blacked out paperwork that's coming? What do you think?
I expect there'll be things in there that have little interest. I expect there'll be some that are red herrings, perhaps even deliberate misinformation. But I expect there will be some, revelations.
Yeah.
Because this is the pattern we see. There has been sort of a trickling out of information, and from an official capacity, it's really ramped up. They said, the Pentagon released a statement that they have, quote, material from otherworldly vehicles. That is a front page, headline, which slipped beneath the radar.
I know. I had to call people and tell people that. They're like, I didn't hear anything about that.
Right?
Are they using the cover of COVID to do this? Like, while COVID's dominating the headlines, do you think that's when they're slipping it in?
Well, it sure seems that way. This is a known technique. If you've got a scandal that you want to be bumped out of the news, there's always a way to do it, and that's to get a bigger news story. And for the Pentagon to say that is gigantic. That's huge. And yet, it's like you say, it's a tease. There's like, here's a picture of a UFO, and we're going to show you a fragment of metal. I know that's what's coming up. And I'm like, don't even do that. Disclosure will not happen, and it will not be taken seriously until we see a craft and bodies that is open to scientific community to investigate, and the public. Show us the Roswell craft. That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's disclosure.
I think the public's ready. I mean, we've been getting ready for the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think that that it's going to be a matter of shock, because it'll be the most, like you said, it's the worst kept conspiracy ever. Everybody knows about it. But
Yeah,
one thing
I kind of imagine that they'll release a craft and people will be like, oh yeah, let's go to the UFO museum, or like, oh no, I want to go to let's go to Disneyland instead or something.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things, because we just all know. You know, too many reports, too many people seeing it, too many interactions, just too much to turn a blind eye to it. Now, one thing I want to cover really quickly, and I don't know if there's anything such as really quickly with these guys, the Men in Black. What purpose are they serving? Why are they showing up? Why are they trying to intimidate people? If it's such an open conspiracy, why the secrecy with that phenomena? Or is it aliens?
What I wonder about is, are the Men in Black aliens, or are they us?
I think they're aliens. That's my personal assessment, and I think most researchers who are Men in Black, they focus on that, agree. Because what happens is there's a tendency for people to call government agents Men in Black. And that's really not what we're talking about here. Because what happens is you have a UFO sighting, and you have photographs, maybe landing traces, and the government will show up. And these will be people in suits who are from some intelligence agency that they will not reveal, and will demand the photos and threaten you to keep quiet. And this is precisely what happens with the real Men in Black. And what's really interesting is they can show up immediately. I mean, and seem to have a very powerful way of monitoring the situation. So if you have, say, physical proof of any kind, they are there. For example, here's just a real quick case from another researcher, Constance Clear. She wrote a book about abductions. And she interviewed this gentleman from Texas who did obtain a metallic artifact. It was given to him by the ETs. This has turned up in other cases. People get little gifts. And he, as soon as he got it, it appeared on his dresser, as they told him it would. He grabbed it and took his UFO notes and drove straight to his therapist's office, Constance Clear. And on the way there was assaulted by these Men in Black, ran off the road, pulled him out of his car and took all his notes, took the metal bar, and threatened him not to talk.
But why would there be aliens covering up aliens? That's where I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know. This is these are basically human-looking guys, except not human. They have perhaps sort of Asian look to their eyes, and not a Caucasian skin color, slightly darker, and walk shambling weird. Their phrasing is weird. Everything about them is strange.
Their skin is weird.
Yeah.
Awkward.
They're
supposed to be very awkward and socially.
Driving black Cadillacs, and
so weird.
It's all very strange, and I do think that they're ETs. I mean, one guy I talked to, I get very few Men in Black cases. I think I have just a couple. And one guy said they came driving up a rain gully, and there really wasn't enough room there. It was just a small ledge, and somehow this car was driving up it. He was just a little kid, so he couldn't quite process it. But as an adult, realized it was a Men in Black encounter.
Yeah.
So they are not normal cars. This is not normal people. I don't know why they're so hostile, but they do scare the living daylights out of people. And don't think it's super common, honestly. Like I said, I've only got one or two reports, but I remember John Keel said he had a number of them.
Yeah.
Do you think that when an extraterrestrial craft comes into our atmosphere, do you think they get permission, or do you think they just come tearing in?
Yeah, I don't know. I can only speculate. It does seem like there's a weird sort of non-interference rule that we're under quarantine to some degree because we're not seeing open official contact. So our government must have come to some agreement with the ETs, or they have a non-interference policy.
Well, how would they know? How would they be able to tell them from a nuclear weapon being fired? So I just wonder. I always wondered, are they letting the Space Command know that they're coming in to the atmosphere, with X ship, or are they just doing it?
As far as I can tell, they're just doing it. We've got inside reports from the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, where they track this stuff, and reportedly it's seen regularly. All the radar operators know about it and know they get no warning, but they've learned to recognize these things.
Okay.
They just got crash the party, is what you're saying. They just show up, and do they?
How are we going to know, though? How are we going to know whether it's an invasion from a foreign land? How do they know which is which?
By how it moves, I think. And I think there's also all this intelligence going on monitoring our, quote, enemies.
Yeah.
We're all one here on Earth. There's really no need for enmity and wars.
If they wanted to take us out, all they'd have to do is pretend they were a nuclear missile or two.
Sure. Well, I was going to say,
kill each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe this is the one thing that Russia and America and everyone else we talk about together.
Yeah.
Is unify over the UFO thing. I mean, maybe that's why we have so much intelligence, because we're all sharing the intelligence.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. At very high levels, there's cooperation on this subject. And UFOs, by the way, are all about nukes. They are monitoring everything that we do with nuclear power. I've got many first-hand cases where they go up to a nuclear submarine or a nuclear ship. They're hovering over nuclear power stations. They are telling experiencers, and this is their number one message ever since this started, onboard experiences, literally from the contact era of 1950s onward. It doesn't matter what type of ET, they're all warning about nuclear proliferation. So they're very concerned about that.
I guess my question would be why? Why do they care what we do on this rock? You know what I mean? Well, they got their own planet. Why do they care what we're doing?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Experiencers are being told that these experiments we're doing with nuclear power, these detonations, are having far-reaching effects in other dimensions and other areas that we don't know about.
Does that mean that they're not extraterrestrial, but extra-dimensionals?
Certainly, but we all are. Okay. You're interdimensional. No, we all are. We're all going to go to the other side. We all have, an interdimensional aspect, as does everything in the universe, really. So I think the ET explanation is definitely the one that best fits the evidence. Some say, oh yeah, they're interdimensional. Perhaps, yeah, but we are too. Doesn't preclude them from being ET, nor if they were time travelers, or, I think the other main theory is that, like Jacques Vallée, Lauren Coleman, Jerome Clark, that this is a phenomena that wears masks and can appear as anything and is just masquerading as ETs. And I have to say, probably that's true in some cases. Tricksters.
Well, I've heard the jinn, by the way. I've heard that a million times.
Exactly. Trickster spirits, kind of. But no, most of what we're dealing with here is, I think, clearly what it appears to be. Because you can track this from sightings down to landing trace cases, to metal fragments, to medical effects, to radar return cases, and people being taken on board. And now we have the bodies. And apparently we've got the craft and we're reverse engineering them. And once that comes into the public arena, all bets are off. We know what this is.
Has there been any really definitive proof that anything has been reverse engineered? I mean, I definitely buy into it because I find the coincidence of certain technologies that emerged right after Roswell But is there any kind of proof that backs up Corso and some of the claims made by reverse engineer?
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now. Devil in Disguise. Only on Peacock. Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.
As far as I know, no. What we have is Corso's claims with a number of inventions like fiber optics and integrated circuit and night vision and so on, which some researchers have tracked down to their actual inventors and didn't come up with proof that this was, sort of filtered into our technology, like Corso says, very discreetly. But what we do have is a lot of whistleblowers saying this is going on, and they are very highly credentialed. No one's been able to really debunk Corso. And there's a lot of other people who are saying this sort of thing. And we also have this corresponding jump in technology. I expect that proof will come at some point, but this is where I think the cover-up is still very tightly clamped down on.
Do you guys remember, I don't know, early 2000s, late 90s, and all the scientists were dying that were connected to the UFO phenomena?
Yeah.
They were like knocking them off left and right.
Suspicious early deaths. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to have kind of tapered off a little bit, but I remember that very vividly. These scientists.
How many people were suicided?
Well, look at James Forrestal. That's one case that often is pointed to. But yeah, there's definitely a high death rate among UFO researchers and people who get involved in this, or if you're trying to, particularly a whistleblower.
There's a new film out. I can't think of the guy's name. It's more of a current case where they found him strangled with his catheter tubing. Do you know who I'm talking about? I can't think of his name. He claimed he was in a firefight at an underground base. Do you know what I'm talking about, Preston?
Oh, gosh. Phil Schneider?
Yeah, Phil. Yep.
What's the story with that? Wait a minute, back up. This man was strangled with a catheter tube?
With his own catheter tube, and he had warned, and he said, I'm going to come forward, but I have a feeling I'm going to be killed. And I'm coming forward to prevent my death. But if I do die of some weird death, it wasn't me. I didn't kill myself. But his claims are pretty wild and pretty, they sound totally nuts. But what are your thoughts on that case, Preston?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about it, honestly, because there are parts of it that I think essentially it is, that sort of thing is happening. Whether that particular case is misinformation, disinformation, or real information, I think there might be, a little bit of muddying of the waters there.
Well, they just released the photos of the crime scene or the suicide scene, and I'll tell you, it sure don't look like anything I've ever seen in all the details. It doesn't look like a suicide.
When a case gets as I recall, this case was kind of attacked a little bit by and whenever I see that, I always like to take a second closer look, because that's exactly what happened with the Aztec UFO crash in Frank Scully, and it was basically debunked, and there was a whole sort of smear campaign against some of the witnesses involved, which researcher William Steinman actually built a compelling case to say that these whistleblowers are actually telling the truth. And now I don't want to say most, but definitely many high-profile UFO researchers do take the Aztec UFO crash seriously, and UFO crashes in general are now taken much more seriously. But when Frank Scully came out with his stories, no, he was debunked, and it killed all research into UFO crashes for decades.
Really? Wow. Do we have enough time to go into that? I mean, why? I mean, what happened? What was so horrible that it stopped everything?
I don't think our government was ready to let that information get out.
Gotcha. He got too close, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what Ed Ruppelt told him, according to Frank Scully. And Frank Scully, by the way, was not really a UFO researcher. He was a mainstream journalist. He's a pretty high-profile figure. And for him to come out with this was pretty shocking. It was the first best-selling UFO book, I think, ever published. And it upset the government for sure. According to Ed Ruppelt, it was far too close to the truth, is what Ed Ruppelt, who's from Project Blue Book, told Frank Scully. And
people that get too close. I remember back in the day, especially in the 80s and 90s and 70s. I mean, up until I would say about 10 years ago, if you got too close, it was almost a death sentence in some ways. Either really death or your career was going to be destroyed.
Yep, absolutely. In fact, that was the official policy. If someone sees a UFO, it's either a hoax, a hallucination, or a misperception. And that's the policy Blue Book took. It didn't matter if you saw something that was absolutely undeniably real. They were not going to let it through, not to the public. And this was our tax dollars at work. And they came out with a negative conclusion on UFOs, as is the Condon Committee and the Robertson panel, and every, quote, official UFO government study. They have bungled this situation badly, and now they're paying for it.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they are, because now the truth is coming out. What's the deal with UFOs and other paranormal stuff that goes on? Like, I hear a lot because I investigate ghosts as well, and I investigate Bigfoot. I kind of do it all. A lot of times when I go on an investigation, like especially like with Bigfoot or, like I said, some ghosts, and one ghost or one entity in particular is the Hat Man. I hear a lot about this Hat Man character and UFOs together, but Bigfoot and UFOs.
Yeah,
I've heard that a lot too. I wonder what do you think that connection is, if there's any?
Yeah, I've actually been working on this for a while. And boy, I did not want to investigate Bigfoot. I really didn't. I had started investigating UFOs because I was having witnesses report this sort of mixed motif encounters. They would have a UFO sighting and a haunting, or they'd be this sort of thing. And I had a case. I remember this is what got me into Bigfoot. I'm like, all right, here we go. You have to follow the trail of evidence, or you're not going to solve any mysteries, right? You cannot let your own preconceptions guide you. You have to look at this objectively and scientifically. And this guy from Canyon Country in Southern California reported having a UFO land in his backyard. Took off real quick. Next day, he had a Bigfoot encounter, and Bigfoot was in the same darn spot. And he said it was telepathic, it was reading his mind, was really mad at the dogs, his dogs, which were barking. And next day he went out and he actually heard this thing roar several times, insists it wasn't a bear. Saw footprints. They were not really sharp or anything. But what's really interesting is following this, he had a poltergeist outbreak in his house. I'm like, oh
my Lord.
Because I was starting to get this sort of thing. I had investigated a very haunted apartment in Van Nuys with two ladies, and it went almost to the point of possession. I mean, this was a dark, evil spirit. And they had to move out because it was attacking them. And it was 1 week later in their brand new apartment. You know, they had a few little things happening, but the haunting stopped, and then this loud buzzing noise fills the apartment. They thought it was a plane going to crash. They run out on their balcony. It's a giant UFO hovering right overhead. And they feel it's somehow connected to their haunting, but can't explain how. I'm not sure how either. Definitely there is a connection, though. It's very strange.
those are two cases you mentioned. Are those the only two cases that you've come across where there's multiple phenomena stacking on each other?
No. It's actually fairly common. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Like with the Bigfoot thing, most Bigfoot encounters do not involve UFOs. They just don't. As far as I can tell, 99% even. And I'm going to say the same with UFOs. If you see a UFO, the chances are you're not going to see a Bigfoot. But there's a good 50 cases where people see these things at the same time. Bigfoot actually coming out of a UFO or going in or in the same area at the same time. And a few cases of one involving grays ordering Bigfoot around like a pet. I know another case in Colorado. A guy came upon a landed UFO, humanoid aliens, human looking, and a Bigfoot was there, and they were controlling it. So I feel like Bigfoot is telepathic. Perhaps some of them are intelligent and interdimensional or have, powers to what we would term superhuman powers, but are really just spiritually advanced and have the ability to travel interdimensionally, like we could if we, were yogis and went up there in the Himalayas and did our thing. So yeah, I think there's a weird connection here. UFOs, the ETs, are very interested in spirituality and in psychic powers. People who are psychic, if you're taken on board, the chances are there's going to be some of this going on, and you're going to come away from your experience perhaps with a psychic ability of various kinds. Astral travel, precognition, psychic readings, Reiki or hands-on healing, dowsing. That turned up in one case. So there seems to be
it kind of rubs off on you, for lack of a better term. They take you up there, or are they teaching you something or expanding your mind? They must be doing something to enhance that person.
Yeah, I think they teach people in some cases. Some they just do something to them. In some cases, I think it's just the experience itself. It's very much like traveling it's very much like a near-death experience, which also has similar transformative effects. It's like traveling to another dimension. It's an opening of yourself to your multidimensional self. So, because we do have the ability to levitate, to teleport, to telekinesis, all these things. Telepathy has been proven in a laboratory setting, as has levitation. And I bring up levitation because a number of experiencers experience spontaneous levitation following their encounters. They will just suddenly float off the ground.
I've heard that over the years. I've heard abductees talking about spontaneous levitation and spontaneous telekinesis. And most of these people, up until their alien experience, were skeptical about the paranormal.
Yeah, can you imagine? That must be a real for me, finding out UFOs were real was not easy. And I found out through, finding out my family had had encounters. I can't imagine what it's like to see one of these things and just have your world ripped out from under you.
I couldn't imagine that either. One day you're living life the way that you have always lived it. Next thing you know, it's upside down.
So, Preston, do you study any of the YouTube UFO videos at all? Do you pay any attention to that stuff? Or is photographic evidence just not in your wheelhouse?
For the most part, it's not in my wheelhouse. I do have people send me photographs, and if I can, I'll forward them to like Bruce Maccabee.
Oh, okay.
I did that once. Because unless a person is willing to stand by their photographs and give an eyewitness testimony and say, this is me who took this photograph or this footage, I'm not really interested, because it's far too easy to Photoshop. And there's so many of these clearly hoaxed. I mean, you don't even need to look at it more than a few seconds. And others are very well done.
Have you seen any videos that you do think are authentic?
I would say, yeah. I would say the Mexico City footage in 1991, I believe it was. There was a solar eclipse.
Yep.
92?
Yep.
91, yeah. And there was a UFO seen over Mexico City, and 30-some people videotaped it from various vantage points.
Yep.
That's the kind of footage I'm like, okay, I mean, try to debunk that. This is great footage.
Yeah.
Another piece of footage I like is the Salida, Colorado footage with Tim Edwards. That was very well authenticated, and multiple photo analysts have looked at it and said this is a very large object, cigar-shaped, quite some distance up there, moving at high speed. So, but for the most part, I'm shy away from commenting on footage because I don't know. I'm not a photo expert.
Would you be more apt to take in as evidence if it was like something from a 35 millimeter camera, the negative?
Yeah, if you have the negative, that's definitely very helpful. Whereas, ultimately it's the witness. If you can't tie footage to a witness, it's almost useless.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's completely useless because you never know. But we really need the eyewitness most of all. And photographic evidence is fantastic. I love it when it turns up. But I find that, if you have multiple eyewitnesses with different cell phones, then when you're talking. And
what about the Phoenix lights? I mean, that was a mass sighting. Obviously, it really happened. We all know that.
Yep.
But do you think that was a government?
Heck no, not ours. No, definitely not ours.
Oh, okay.
Because Luke Air Force Base freaked out when this thing came over them and then over Phoenix. And it was more than one, and it was over a period of 2 hours. Very low level. This thing was half a mile wide.
Yeah, it was huge.
And there were people who caught this on videotape. And Luke Air Force Base sent planes scrambling after this. We know because there were eyewitnesses who lived next to the base report this. Multiple eyewitnesses saw the jets taking off and sort of tracking this thing. So they knew from the beginning, and Luke Air Force Base issued a few statements saying, no, we've received no calls. And we knew that was false because, in fact, the police were referring people to Luke Air Force Base, and people were calling the National UFO Reporting Center, who had also called Luke Air Force Base. So right from the beginning, Luke Air Force Base lied, and they started issuing, as did the police, contradictory statements. Police were saying, oh, no, we didn't get calls, and it turned out they were flooded.
It was interesting. The governor even lied and then came forward. He had a sighting.
Yeah, and I'm so glad he did. Fife Symington.
Yeah.
God bless him for coming forward, but shame on him for not coming forward and having someone dressed up as an ET and coming to a press conference and ridiculing the whole situation.
But okay, so you have this mass sighting that was seen over several states, but my question is, why doesn't something like that convince more people that this phenomenon is real? You would think that, okay, when that came out, I'm like, well, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
That is disclosure. It's a mass sighting, disclosure by them.
Exactly.
And nothing happened. I mean, it made it in USA Today like weeks later. It wasn't even in the newspapers right away.
I think it had its desired effect from the ET point of view, because what they're doing is, all right, if our government, they've approached our government and asked for disclosure, and our government has not disclosed, nor have they been truthful or transparent. So the ETs are doing a grassroots movement, what amounts to a publicity campaign. And they're doing this in a way that's not going to cause social unrest. And this was a step. and it was a very profound one, and one of the most widely viewed. I think it's probably the most widely viewed single sighting in U.S. history.
Well, look at the O'Hare Airport footage.
Right.
Well, there's no.
You know, I mean,
footage.
that made Good Morning America, for crying out loud. I mean, it was everywhere. They were talking about this sighting at O'Hare Airport. Dan Aykroyd bought all the film.
But there was no footage of that, was there?
There's a pictures. Yeah, he bought all the film.
There
Dan Aykroyd
was only a picture of the clouds, as I remember.
No, they've got a photo.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, and Dan Aykroyd bought everything. That you can't even see it on the internet now. It's scrubbed.
Really?
That photo, and allegedly, this is what I was told, that Dan Aykroyd, the actor, bought all of the rights and the likenesses and everything. You can't even get a peek at it anymore.
That case was almost erased completely. It was not going to be public. It had, journalist actually latched onto the story and forced it out into the public, a mainstream journalist.
I remember briefly seeing that picture. That's something else.
I don't.
That was a hell of a photo.
Another good photo. It showed a little metallic disc. You can see it.
Yep. Yeah, just like looked a lot like the one on the poster for X-Files where it says, "I want to believe." You know, that disc that's on that poster looked a lot like that. And at first I thought it was a hoax, and because it came across my news feed, and I started looking into it deeper, and oh my God, that's real.
Nope. Seen by pilots up in the airplanes. Seen by aircraft controllers, baggage handlers. A lot of people saw this one.
So
thousands.
Aren't we due for another mass sighting, Preston?
Yeah, we sure are. Because I was looking back, like, what's the most? Stevensville was relatively recent, but now that's 5 years at least.
Yeah,
perhaps longer.
And I think,
so we're definitely overdue. There's, every 5 years or so, there's a sighting that is so massive, it cannot be debunked or hidden from the mainstream media.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just kind of pierces through.
And this is because the aliens want to come out. They so to speak, they want to come out. And,
it has to be.
And say, hey, we want to be a part of this. We want you to know who we are. Is there any chance that they made us? I mean, ancient aliens. I mean, do you buy into that at all?
Yeah, I do. Because for a couple of reasons. The fact that all ETs are pretty much humanoid raises some very serious questions about who we are, particularly the fact they're human-looking ETs. So what does that mean? Did we evolve on Earth? What's our connection to these ETs? And if you believe these ancient writings, Bible and otherwise, apparently there has been genetic intervention or interbreeding for a very long time. And it's exactly what we're seeing right now in the modern age with hybrid baby phenomena.
Look how much genetic manipulation that we're doing.
Yeah.
We've only had this kind of technology we've only been a technological race for 70, 80 years. And we're already manipulating genetic material.
Yeah, genes have been manipulated for a very long time in the agricultural industry. A lot of our foods, come that way from very careful genetic engineering.
It's one of the first things we've done. And so to think that they haven't done it to us is it just seems wrong. It just seems like it would be the obvious thing that we've been genetically engineered, and they obviously messed up our back. So, God, we all have bad backs.
Right.
It made us very vulnerable to disease and stuff like. I mean, definitely the engineering department must have been a Monday when they made us because they're all hungover. So the engineering department could have done better.
Well, that's why they're remodeling us. What I find interesting is, every, 100, 200 years ago, life expectancy was half what it is. People were also smaller. And here's a really interesting case, real briefly, from Florida. This guy by the name of Jim was visited by gray ETs. He had been for years, and he was over his fear to a certain extent. He said, if you're going to take me, cure my hernia. And they said, "We know of this condition that you speak of, and we will repair it." That was almost a direct quote. And they fixed his hernia, and he's like, "Why are you taking me? Why are you abducting me?" And they told him, "We are interested in your genetic potential to live a long time," which Jim found interesting because his grandfather was 106 and still alive and kicking, perfectly healthy.
Oh, geez. Wow.
So I'm like, wow, yeah, they're interested in that?
Yeah.
Which makes sense to me because I've had a lot of people tell me when I interview them who are having these really close encounters that they enjoy excellent health and have, they go to the doctor, they're elderly, and like, wow, you've got the lungs of an 18-year-old. Your heart is great. You look, so.
Yeah, my grandfather, I always tell people this story. His first time to the doctor, including not being born at the doctor's, he was 85 years old.
Never saw a doctor before.
Said, he just had a little rash on his hand. And he went to the doctor finally. The doctor says, "Hey, you're in great health. It was the last time you were at a doctor?" And my grandfather got quite angry. He said, "What do you mean the last time? This was the first time." Anyhow.
Yeah, so that to think that they have played that is such paradigm changing for many of us to think that they made us, because that throws flies in the face of religion.
I almost look at UFOs like floating hospitals. Honestly, I really do. If you look at these objectively, there's a very strong medical theme that runs through them. It's the most common thing that people experience if taken on board is being physically examined.
So that was the one thing, Preston, that you just said. He always has one thing, Joel, that he says that just kind of makes your hair stand up on end. Floating hospitals. And I'm thinking,
right, take
just
us in.
My dots. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Great.
Fix us up.
Yeah, I say that because I've documented some 300 cases of healings.
Wow.
And I think that's the tip of the iceberg.
Are you writing a book on that topic, or do you already have one?
Yeah, I wrote one, The Healing Power of UFOs.
Okay.
And people have been cured. There's some very well-known cases.
Can you just quickly go through the titles of some of your books?
Oh, yeah, sure. The Healing Power of UFOs, 300 cases of people healed as a result of a UFO encounter. Undersea UFO Base, which is an in-depth study of USOs in the Santa Catalina Channel. Schoolyard UFO encounters, 100 documented cases of UFOs not only hovering over schools, but landing in 30% of the cases. Oh. They're showing themselves off to children on purpose. And it's very much like what's going on with drive-in UFO encounters. That's another book. Yeah. Got 100 cases where they're showing themselves off to people at drive-in theaters. Honest to God, this is a thing.
Jeez.
And
keep going.
It's part of this publicity campaign to sort of introduce their presence. I've also got 3 books out in a series called Not From Here, which is all about the sort of strange and outlying cases, like UFOs hovering over prisons or UFOs hovering over graveyards. And this sort of thing, just weird cases.
Mm-hmm.
Like phone call from an ET, that ETs call people on the phone. No joke.
That's what happened to me tonight. That's what happened to me tonight, Joel. Keep going.
That must have been what happened to you. I've studied the whole phone phenomena with ETs and ghosts, and it's amazing. It's crazy.
Are we out of time, Joel?
We are out of time. I just can't stop listening. So, but Preston, why don't you give your website one more time and how you can, how people can get a hold of you and buy your books and that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. It's www.prestondennett.weebly.com. If you just Google my name, it should take you there, and you can definitely contact me through the website or get my books on Amazon or online retailers near you, or if you can find a bookstore, you'll find them there, hopefully. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you for coming back. Do you Facebook or social media at all?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm new to that, but I am on Facebook. Easy to find. Also got my own YouTube channel, which I'm putting videos out on my research if you don't have time to read the books. So yeah, I'm keeping busy. I've got more books coming out.
Yeah, you are a very busy man.
Yeah, I watched one of your videos, Preston, and I was impressed. Yeah, I was extremely thorough on the angel hair.
Right. Yeah, the angel hair. It's another interesting piece of evidence.
Yep.
Really, it's very interesting. All the stuff you're doing is very interesting, and I'm gonna keep an eye on you and read. I read everything you got out there. I remember reading a few of your books. I got to read more of them because you're so good at it too, so thorough. And if you never read a Preston Dennett book, you really got it because you are completely thorough in those books, and you're very good at writing it too. You don't get tongue-tied in your own work. You actually write very, very well. Doesn't read like stereo instructions, is what I'm trying to say, and it's very entertaining. Preston Dennett, everybody, check it out. Buy his books. You will not regret it. We got to get out of here. Until next time, this is Joel and Doug signing off. Take care of each other and watch out for those aliens. But you never know. They might abduct you and cure whatever ails you. You just don't know.
You could save big when you bundle home and auto with Progressive, so you went online to check it out. But then you saw a link for a survey about which type of bread you are. And now you're on question 17, barely scratching the surface of your bread identity. You always thought of yourself as a brioche, but are you actually more of a pumpernickel? Ah, yes. They said it was easy to save money bundling with Progressive, but they forgot about the rest of the internet. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.